thanks for tuning in, everyone out there in internet land and here in Green Hearts. Thanks for tuning in for Global Purpose Live, our third episode, and we're super excited to have Jude Currivan here with us today. Jude is just a beautiful, lovely woman. She's been with us all week here for our Irvin Laszlo's tribute. She is a cosmologist, a planetary healer, and she has been experiencing multidimensional reality since she was a child and has a lot to share with us. So I'm just going to turn it over to co-founder and president of Green Heart, Emmanuel Kunselman, for the interview. So thanks again.
Okay, thank you, Carly. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Global Purpose Live, our third edition of this exciting series. And we're really excited today to have Dr. Jude Currivan with us. Thank you, Jude, for coming all this way to join us today here in Chicago.
Thanks, Emmanuel. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to sit with you and have such an amazing conversation. Jude is as you can tell from her accent, hails from the United Kingdom, and she has a master's degree in physics from Oxford University, a doctorate in archaeology from the University of Reading, the author of 5 previous books, and most recently your new book, The Cosmic Hologram, Information from the Center of Creation. Very exciting topic we're going to explore today. And Jude has also got a long career. She's been one of the top women in corporate finance in the UK and worked in that field for nearly 25 years before getting back to her true love, I think, which is, shall we say, cosmic understanding.
That's a great way of putting it.
So, yes, you conquered the corporate world, and now you're blessing us with your skills here in really understanding what the cosmos is all about, and hopefully helping us all find our purpose here today. So, the cosmic hologram. You know, I've long thought that the universe is indeed a hologram, but maybe start off telling us a little bit what brought this book about. What's your view of the hologram? Just give us a little insight on the big view of your very big view.
Okay, thanks, Emmanuel. Well, I go back 3,000 years, really, to ancient India, because the Vedic sages of ancient India describe reality, describe the universe as a myriad of jewels. And each jewel was multifaceted, and every multifacet of the jewel reflected every other jewel in the universe, and all the jewels were connected by golden light. And it's a beautiful vision, very deeply intuitive and experienced vision, I think, called Indra's Net. And in the past few years, a whole convergence of science is suggesting that our universe and the nature of physical reality is very similar to how the ancients saw it. And of course we use the word hologram now. Cosmologists are beginning to understand that all we call space and time and energy matter, physical reality, is actually a hologram that's essentially projected, a projection of consciousness that appears as three-dimensional reality, but is not. There is a deeper reality that is not that physicalized presence of space and time. And they're adding to that, they're saying also, not saying, but the convergence is that information is more fundamental than energy and matter and space and time. So across a whole raft of scientific research, there is this convergence of physical realities being informed and holographically manifest. And of course with holograms, if you have a hologram of an object and you slice and dice it, the whole is in every part, and every part is in the whole. And that is crucial. Of course that too is ancient understanding of as above, so below, as within, so without. So these ancient this ancient wisdom from a number of traditions is actually being rediscovered in scientific terms as what I'm calling the cosmic hologram.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always been a fan of the ancient wisdom, but I never really could understand, as Blake said, how we can see the universe in a grain of sand and vice versa, until I read about the hologram and saw that, no matter how little of a slice you cut out of that hologram, you still see the whole thing. So that kind of helped me see it. But I'm interested using the hologram as a symbol for this here. My understanding, a hologram is made with a laser beam that's shot out there and then kind of divided, reflected off of a mirror and rejoins the reference original beam, and that intersection of the light beams really forms this hologram. So are you saying then that the cosmos initiated a sort of the equivalent of this light beam of information? Is that fair to say?
Essentially, yes. I mean, the other part of it is, of course, when you split the beam, as you say, bounce one off an object and keep the other one going, they come together on a two-dimensional surface. The actual hologram is formed when a light is then flows through that two-dimensional pattern. Mm-hmm. And then recreates the original object. And of course, what that split light beam does, when it bounces, when one of the split beams bounces off an object, what it's doing, it's collecting information about that object and then recombining to form an informational pattern that then when another light beam shone through, you get the appearance of the hologram. Now, in terms of the cosmic hologram, that light shone through that two-dimensional surface is what appears as physical reality. But the initial beam splitting in a very cosmic way, rather than a very basic man-made way, my sense is consciousness choosing to experience itself through that holographic projection, because our universe is also a unified entity. It's non-locally connected beyond space-time as a whole. So in that sense, it exists and evolves as a unified, simultaneously knowing entity. And yet, because of that holographic projection of consciousness into what we call space and time, we experience. We can exist and learn and evolve and grow and do all the stuff we do, and not just we do, but our entire universe does from its beginning 13.8 billion years ago. So it's set up in such an incredibly exquisite and amazingly fine-tuned, and yet fundamentally as simple as it can be, as Einstein said, but no simpler way, for all this to happen.
Yeah. So could we say that the splitting of the beam and holographic imaging, would that be equivalent to the beginning of our universe? It's often been called the Big Bang. I know you've said that it was neither big nor a bang, and like to call it the Big Breath. I've heard it called the Big Wow, the Grand Thought, whatever. But is that the moment then that consciousness split off at the initiation of our universe?
My sense is yes, and that, within the infinity and eternity of the cosmos, that universes are finite thought forms. They're universe souls that have a beginning, and that beginning is that tiny beginning, not infinitely tiny, but what's called Planck scale era tiny, so minute, but at the very get-go, rather like a newborn baby, having all that is needed for that baby to exist, but it needs something else for that baby to evolve into an adult and have a lifetime of experience. So the way that consciousness sets up is that very beginning of that big breath, with all our universe needs to exist, but then the way that the hologram works is space has to expand and time to flow for our universe then to be able to evolve and evolve ever greater levels of embodied consciousness and embodied complexity and self-awareness.
Yeah. And is it fair to say that now with human conscious kind of doing some self-reflective work on all of this, so we might say, is that fair to say, is that's the point where the light shines through the two-dimensional image there and projects this wider scale? Could we say that? Or?
I feel we can, but it's been doing that from the get-go. It's been doing that for 13.8 billion years. So for the whole of our, if you think of a balloon being blown up, yeah, and if we think of the holographic boundary of our universe as the surface of the balloon, and every tiny, tiny, tiny Planck scale area of that surface holding one bit of information, then from that beginning of space-time, as the balloon is blown up, then more and more and more and more information is able to be expressed within space-time. So the whole thing from the get-go to the completion of our universe is holographic. But we're at a point now, you're absolutely right, where we're at a point of perhaps conscious emergence to the next level, not just for humanity, but for our universe. And what I found fascinating was that cosmologists understood a few years ago that our universe, instead of its expansion slowing down, is speeding up, is accelerating. And that started to happen about 5 billion years ago, which was the time when our solar system came into existence. And if you look at the progress of evolution from the moment of the Big Breath to 5 billion years ago, you got to sort of third or fourth generational stars with all the nutrients to be able to form planetary systems and rocky planets, able to nurture a home for the emergence of biological life. And then at that moment, with probably lots of planetary systems being born around that time, not just in our galaxy, but throughout our universe, it was as though at that point, our universe went into overdrive in terms of consciousness. And that acceleration is ongoing and looks as though that will continue to the completion of our universe soul's life story.
Well, we're certainly interested in accelerating this process of consciousness. I think we're quite in need of that here on planet Earth. We're kind of, stuck a little bit right now. And everything you're talking about and you're describing in your books is this revolution in science, the new paradigm, as we've called it. How do you feel, there's been huge resistance from academia, the scientific community, scientific materialism, all of those sectors, to really grasping that maybe consciousness is fundamental and what that means for humanity. You, as probably one of the foremost advocates of this new paradigm shift, how do you see that happening? How long will it take for the mainstream public and the scientific community to embrace this? And what implications does that have for us as mere mortals trying to live out our life? How is that going to change our lives?
I'm reminded of Shakespeare. I think it was Shakespeare that says that a time comes in the affairs of man when a tide is on the turn. And I remember back 100 years to the last scientific revolution. And what scientists were, well, first of all, it was a chancellor of one of the universities, I think in the late 1900s, that when students were coming to say, I want to study physics, he said, no, don't study physics, because everything that needs to be discovered has already been discovered. Go and do something else. It's all been discovered.
So they thought.
So they thought. And yet, at the same time that he was saying that, there were anomalies being understood. For example, people trying to understand how ovens, something as simple as ovens, radiated heat. And the principles of physics then understood were saying, well, that heat has to be infinite, because they thought energy and matter were continuous. So all wavelengths, so an infinite amount of heat. Well, I know when I cook a cake, it's not infinite heat, And so it took people like Max Planck and others and Einstein to realise that actually energy isn't continuous, it's quantized. It comes in packages.
Right.
And that pulled down, so instead of an infinite amount of heat, it was a finite amount of heat that then was correct when it was measured. So the theory came into line with the discoveries and the anomalies. And so ultimately, science as a pursuit, its job really is to follow the evidence wherever it leads. And it's pretty good at that, but not always as good as that. And I think we're now at a point where there are so many anomalies, and what is being seen by not just physicists, but across all sciences, is they're realising that information is more fundamental. And I think the other thing that's come, two other things which are key. One is we've got computers. So we can analyse vast amounts of information and see the hidden patterns beneath the appearance. The other thing is we've got kids who are into virtual realities and games. And it's exactly the same digital information that supports all our technologies, all our man-made holograms, all our virtual realities, is exactly the same as the universal information, digitized information, that is being discovered to underlie and pervade and indeed be the fundamental stuff of reality. So lots of things are converging.
Mm-hmm. This fundamental information that you're describing, is that the equivalent of some kind of cosmic intelligence or a deity or something like that? How do you frame that association there? Is it all the same thing?
Yes and no, maybe. I guess I'm with Albert Einstein on this one, that, having walked between worlds, literally, having had many, many multidimensional experience since I was very, very small, and that's, over 60 years of that level of exploration. For me, all that is the oneness of all that is, has ever been and will be as cosmic mind. And we're now at the place where science is coming, as I say, onto the threshold of perspective, that information and thus consciousness is the fundamental stuff. Consciousness isn't what we have, it's what we and the whole world are, and mind is matter. And there are lots of clues over the last 100 years, and people like John Archibald Wheeler, calling the eternal black hole, said it from bit. Well, we're a step even beyond John, because we're now saying it is bit. And so for me, having played multidimensionally, it's the infinity of cosmic mind, but expressed through myriads of universes. And our universe are myriads of levels of awareness. From childhood, I've communicated with deities and ascended masters and extraterrestrial intelligences and devic and elemental intelligences and planetary rocket. My mum used to say I'll speak with anybody, and I pretty much have. So consciousness is this richness, this incredible richness of multiple, myriad levels of awareness and archetypal intelligences, and individuated, microcosmic, co-creative folks like us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I want to get back. I got a couple more questions on this nature of the cosmic intelligence, but maybe we better bring this down a little bit and try and look at some more practical applications. First of all, so you seem quite confident that the materialistic scientific community is going to fall into understanding this and accepting it, one, and two, once that is more the agreed upon understanding of what makes our cosmos work, how will that then filter down? Will it affect business, ecology, social systems? Will we have a oneness filtering through rather than the rather divisive society we live today? How do you see all of this coming into play here? And it's happening very quickly. So
it is happening quickly, and I'm very hopeful, because as a healer, I know that if we just deal with the symptoms that are dis-ease, then we're not going to resolve the dis-ease, and that dis-ease will find other ways of manifesting. And what I'm seeing is that our behaviours, the way our behaviours have arisen from our fragmental perspectives. Our fragmental perspectives, which that materialistic reductionist science has supported, have driven our dysfunctional behaviours, and our dysfunctional behaviours have got us to a point where a couple of years ago the United Nations adopted 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which are all about well-being and ending poverty and inequality. But of course, inequality and poverty and conflicts all are a result of the dysfunctional behaviours that derive from our dysfunctional worldview. And so for me, this convergence, which is going to be far more than a scientific revolution, but it's scientifically based evidence, has the potential to help us heal our fragmented perspectives into a whole worldview. And I think when that happens, it's like, when we go back to the cause of the dis-ease and resolve it from that place, then everything changes. So the way we are with each other, the way our social organisations, our corporations, our financial, economic systems, our healthcare, our education, the way we treat each other, the way we treat our beloved Mother Earth, I feel can be completely transformed. Our behaviours can be healed if our beliefs are healed. And in a way, this is beyond belief, in the sense that it's the evidence.
Right.
And it's far, and it's not just at the very tiny quantum theory, big, like relativities, every scale in between, including at the levels of our everyday lives. This is evidence from the same informational patterns that pervade ecosystems, pervade the internet, pervade stock markets, pervade our political decisions, pervade how we choose to go to war, are the same patterns as through the natural world. So it's not just science, it's what our choices are, how we behave are all patterned from this informed and holographic emergence that we call physical reality.
Yeah, but it's helpful if science leads the way. Because we're all so dependent on that. At least we used to be interested in facts. I'm not so sure in this alternative fact world that we live in, how relevant that is. But I think so. I think we're still interested in facts. And if science drives this, what you call whole world view, forward, hopefully then it's only a matter of a short period of time that this begins to penetrate into other sectors of society. But you've been the CFO of a $500 million corporation. At what point does a CFO or a board of executives begin to understand the whole world view and think, well, maybe we should cooperate with our competition more than otherwise because of these new scientific understandings? How does that come into play, and at what point does it really happen, do you think?
Well, you are head of a large organisation, and you have this perspective. People. We're having conversations across, all areas of folks' lives. We're holding conversations with educators who get this, filmmakers who get this, technologists who get this, kids that get this, and CEOs who get this. So it's almost like an early coalition of the willing. The early adopters, I think the marketing folks call them.
Yes.
Who get this through their own life's curiosity and their own life's experiences. And there are more and more of them who are curious about this. And, I think they're going to find this message, because this message is getting out not just through, the book, that's a tiny seed point, but through films and music and stories and sharing the word and excitement and empowerment and lots of ways, because I really feel that this is a time whose idea has come.
Well, that it is, and we're all excited to be living in this absolutely sacred moment in the evolution of human society as we see it emerging in all sectors of society, as you say. So there's this kind of driving purpose through the whole thing. Could we say that the fundamental consciousness that produced this hologram, was that a driving purpose? We're the global purpose movement here. You know, was that purpose in the beginning then? Was it intentionally done? And if so, for what reason?
Going back to the beginning, I mean, one of the things with our universe is it was so incredibly exquisitely set up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so fine balanced, perfectly. You know, we're talking about factors of 1 in 10 to the 27, which is 1 in 1 followed by 27 zeros,
right,
in terms of balancing. But time and time again, that is shown that our universe was set up in an incredible, special way, not just allowing it to exist, but to evolve at ever greater levels of complexity and self-awareness. So there was, you know, I mean, you know, if you believe in a meaningless cosmos and a randomness, then, you know, you'll find ways to avoid this. But, you know, for me and for many, many others, and I feel the evidence is ever more compelling, that all we call reality, not just our universe, but the infinity of the cosmos, is that it's cosmic mind. And in universes, so some may just splutter and die, some may be even more exquisitely set up and even more complex, and a whole series of almost incarnational universes, where universes bud into new universes and are born and grow and die, and then their experience is released to the cosmic plenum. And so the senses of an impulse of evolutionary curiosity, of just curiosity as to what experience is. You know, not just existing, but exploring and evolving and knowing and reflecting. And that's what the hologram does so perfectly, in its innate reflectivity, in its innate relationability. It is perfectly constructed for consciousness to explore itself on all these different levels of being.
I'll take that as purposeful. All right. But, you know, so the cosmos is born with this intelligence and purpose, and it does flow into some people, but at the same time, many of us have to work hard to develop it. And you know, you come from fairly, shall we say, humble origins. You're a coal miner's daughter, and well, you should be. But you've done well. What do you have some advice for people who are struggling these days, who haven't quite seen the hologram of cosmic intelligence in their mind's eye, and hoping to find greater purpose in their life? Some advice, some words that have inspired you along the way to share with our audience here as to how they might get better in tune with their own cosmic purpose?
Well, I think the first and foremost is to say, I'll never say it's easy, and it was not easy for me. My mum divorced my birth father when I was 2. My dad, who adopted me as a minor, died when I was 10. My mum brought myself and my younger brother up. I had terrible emotional relationships when I was in my 20s and 30s. And so it's been a long journey for me too. You know, people may look at me now and go, yeah, she had it easy, yeah. Absolutely not.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. But one thing that always I've found, and there's a lovely Danish philosopher called Søren Kierkegaard, and he said, you live life forward and understand it backwards. And we all do that. And I look back and realise it's simple, but it isn't easy. And my issues, my challenges were when I forgot. For whatever reason, and there were times, either because I was too busy or I was too fearful or whatever, that I forgot that I'm loved. I forgot that we're all loved. I forgot that we're all divine sparks of the great flame. I forgot that once, and there were times when I forgot it. And so I would say to anybody and everyone, do what calls you to be kind to yourself. Do what calls you to be kind to others. Practice kindness every day. Practice honesty with yourself and others every day. Do what you know your heart's right every day, even if it's something small. And don't give yourself a hard time if you fall over. Just get up, dust yourself off and keep on keeping on. Show up to life, show up to possibility. And know that we're all in it together. And we're all fellow travellers. And, you know, that love is the most profound and fundamental ness of the cosmos.
Mm-hmm. Very, very nicely said. Was there anyone or more mentors or moments of inspiration, demonstrations of kindness towards you along the way, perhaps when you were struggling? Was there anyone in particular, any moments or sudden revelations that you had to help you get through some of those difficult times?
Oh, many. And some tiny little things that I thought were tiny but were huge, and some that were clearly huge in the moment. I mean, my first great privilege was to have a mum who, even when we were very, straitened by circumstances, always encouraged me to live my dreams. Had some very basic rules for life, which was about kindness. She always said treat everybody the same, whoever they are. And I've met princes and monarchs and billionaires and folks on the street and folks who are in war-torn situations with nothing. And she always said treat everybody the same with kindness and with honour and respect. So that was a profound teaching. Always be as true as you know what the truth is, and sometimes you don't, but you do your best. So be true, and that was pretty much it. And be yourself. Just be yourself. Don't try to be anybody else. Don't try and say, well, I should be like that person or that person. Be yourself. Be kind to yourself, and you'll be yourself. Be true to yourself, and you'll be yourself. So that's lifelong. And then I've had many teachers and mentors, discarnate and incarnate, who along the way have been kind to me and been true to me at times when I was perhaps less true and less kind to myself.
Mm-hmm. So you feel like there are discarnate beings out there ready, willing, and able to help us if we're just open to seeking their advice?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes? That sounds like a very affirmative yes.
All my life. And the thing that I always asked for was, please, if I'm being shown something, is it possible for it to be verified, validated? And that's not always the case. I've been a lot with no-thingness and not knowingness and come to a great comfort with that, as well as the knowingness. But on many occasions, that verification, that validation has come through in all sorts of weird and wonderful ways. But it's sustained me. It's sustained me through the not knowingness to another place of knowingness, and then being willing to leave the beach again and get into the ocean and just swim along, without my feet being able to touch the ground,
Mm-hmm.
just trusting that I am looked after.
Trusting, being open to it. Do you meditate upon this? Do you have any techniques that you utilize to get in touch with this vaster knowledge field out there?
I would defer to many, many other folks who have many, many wonderful modalities. I just show up and try and get out of the way and let come through what comes through. I over many years, I try and live my life as a living meditation by being present in as many moments as I can manage to be that.
Well, that you're doing an extremely wonderful job. I must say, just talking with you, Jude, I get the sense that you fully embrace service to humanity, that you aren't in this for a career path for Jude Currivan. You are in this because you've recognized that we are in this extremely critical moment, and that you want to be of service in any way that you possibly can. Would you say that's a fair description of your place in life right now?
It's very fair, and the only thing I would add to that is that not just humanity, but for our beloved Mother Earth and all our brothers and sisters we share this fabulous, abundant planet with. So that service is to all of that, and a wider cosmos, because I really do feel that, as you say, Emmanuel, we're on this threshold, potentially, of a conscious emergence. And my own experiences and understanding is it's that not just for humanity, but for our whole planetary, our beautiful Gaia, as the ancient Greeks called her, the whole intelligence of our planetary home and all her children, of which we've been unruly teenagers. Time to grow up and help Mom.
Yeah, that we have. You know, Dwayne Elgin has done an exercise oftentimes, and he asks people at what point his audience see humanity, and the overwhelming answer is we're teenagers and kind of younger ones at that. So as you describe us working through this, fundamental problem of dis-ease that we have, which is really separation, fragmented reality, and beginning to understand, one mind, cosmic unity, and these things. And as that comes forward into our understanding, let's bring that down to earth. Will we gain a more whole world view of dear Gaia? I know the second book, your book now is proposed part of a trilogy, and the second one is Gaia.
Yeah, Gaia, her story.
Yeah. Are we going to heed Gaia's call for help in time and preserve our planet? How do you see that playing out?
The answer is I don't know. I feel we're on a threshold. We both dear friends of Irvin, Laszlo, and Irvin's a great pioneer in systems thinking. And when you have a complex system, you have what's called an attractor basin. And that system plays out within the limits, within the boundaries of that attractor. And when a system is buffeted or unstable, it begins to break down. The attractor basin can't hold it and it becomes unstable. But what happens in systems evolution is either that system becomes unsustainable and breaks down, or what happens is within the potentiality of consciousness, a new attractor basin starts to become potentized, potentialized, and then crystallized. And what happens is that the old system that's sort of verging and becoming less and less stable, and the new system that's the attractor that's calling for emergence, are both sort of, one is the old paradigm, one is a new paradigm. But then what happens is there's what's called flickering. And flickering is the consciousness of the old is sort of going towards the potentiality of the new, and then it falls back.
Right.
And then it flickers and falls back. And I wrote a piece called The Flickering of Hope a few months ago about this, because I feel that's where we are now. Deep within our collective psyche, there is this potentizing of the possibility of conscious evolution. And yet the old paradigm with its duality and its fragmentation and its fear-based perspective as a result of that perceived separation is sort of holding on. Now I know my whole own life, when the pain of holding on is greater than the pain of letting go, I let go. And I think we're at that stage where the unresolved pain and trauma of all of the inequalities and conflicts and issues that have arisen from our fragmented perspective is so great that the levels of complacency and denial that everything was fine can no longer hold. So my sense we're at that potential birthing point, but then it's down to each and every one of us as part of our collective whole, as individual microcosmic co-creators, it seems to me to make our choices and show up as best we can to be part of this rather than part of this. So are we going to take a fall into fear, or are we going to take a leap into love? I know what my vote is.
Well, we're all voting for the leap into love, that's for sure. Can you give us a little bit of description of this new attractor that will help us galvanize or come to the heat of the call around the leap into the love? Do you have any kind of clear view of what it is, how it works?
I have a sense of that, but I also feel that it's our collective psyche that will mould and moderate and literally do that. But from what I sense is that, first of all, it's about us understanding the ones. You know, if we still are relying on a materialistic and reductionist science that says there's no meaning, there's no this, there's no that, that is falling away because the evidence is so compelling that that is mistaken. So just as we've had expanded worldviews based on science, so from 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th century, the 21st century scientific perspective is moving towards that understanding of oneness. But then, and I think that gives a lot of folks perhaps a comfort blanket to be willing to experience what that might mean. And when we start to experience what that might mean, we can begin to embody what that is. So for me, it's very much being at least willing to act as if oneness is reality. And then what does that mean in our own lives? And what we're going to go on later today to do is, you know, how do we each see it? Then how do we see it within our relationships, our work, our community? How do we then practice this? How do we find ways together? Because this isn't, you know, me or anyone else saying, follow me. This is, we're all fellow travelers in this.
Right.
And for those of us that perhaps have been privileged to have these experiences and this deep knowing, how do we serve? How do we help? How do we help empower others to feel able to enter this? And I don't know what it means. All I do know is that when we enter into, from my own experience, when we do begin to experience embodied unity awareness, we don't lose the me. We don't suddenly go into a grey goo of homogenous blur. We actually remember who we really are as unique microcosmic co-creators. But then we can look around and see we're all microcosmic co-creators, and then celebrate that diversity within the oneness. And I'm finding around the world, and I know you are, that when we come into a gathering with that heart-centered perspective, then we don't have to say clever words, we don't have to, you know, get into the depth, you know, it just is. It flows, it inspires, it empowers. People are included, not excluded. People are honoured, not dishonoured. People are loved, not feared. You know, it's so simple, and I'm not saying it's easy, but for me that's the journey we are on. How every day, when we were coming here, we passed a lawn sign saying fear has no home here, or hate has no home here.
Right.
That's the lived reality of this.
It's the way it has to be. You know, you touched on something there, I think, profoundly important to all of us in understanding the implications of this new paradigm, is that we don't lose the me, you know? And as we become more of our individual self, then we become also simultaneously more of the cosmos.
Yes.
And it kind of reinforces itself. So maybe we lose this ego sense of who we thought we were, but yet we're still individual beings, and yet we're in that hologram of cosmic oneness. And it becomes a very powerful reinforcing emergence there that works within us, and we suddenly realize that we become more of our true selves by becoming more of the universal oneness. Would you say that's accurate?
Exactly. I mean, when we were with Irvin and the tribute for Irvin the other day, you know, he was a musician, he was a child prodigy musician, so he got the sort of resonances and the music. I think I was saying something along the lines of, you know, we're each a note in the cosmic symphony, the dynamic cosmic symphony. We're all playing together. And, you know, when we sound on a true note, then the music is resonant and powerful. But if we're not quite fine-tuned, or the note isn't, you know, we don't say it on the, you know, so it's singing our own note.
Absolutely.
Then we can be this amazing, unique, microcosmic co-creators of this amazing symphony of cosmic intelligence and this incredible moment of evolutionary impulse.
Yeah, we might say it's a good thing to tune our instrument first before we start playing in the symphony, right? And therefore we can hope for some kind of universal harmony rather than discordance or dissonance.
That's the one.
And it really is about being kind of in sync with this wave, this flow, the cosmic symphony.
And you're right, it's being true to ourselves. It's by being willing to work on our own note.
Yes.
And because we grow up so often, you know, with the shoulds and the shouldn'ts and the this and the that's and the others. So shedding that to literally remember who we really are and then be who we really are.
Where do you see us 20, 30 years down the line? Do you see us emerging from these critical moments, making the leap into love? Give us your view of human society, shall we say, 30 years into the future.
I'm not sure it's even 30 years ahead. Looking 10 years ahead.
Okay.
The one thing I don't see is the current situation being sustainable. I don't feel, I mean, I may well be wrong, but I feel we're at that point of unsustainability. For a while now, I felt we're in the birth canal of emergence. And it's like the birthing of a new baby that is us. Now that baby, you know, in a birth canal has to go through some pretty turbulent, you know, experiences and moments. And it may be that if we don't have a collective tipping point of awareness, that we may not survive, because the universe is about emergence of intelligence, emergence of consciousness. If as a species we're not able to go through that birth canal and in the way that we've been describing, my sense is that Gaia and will say enough. You know, these turbulent teenagers, you know, out the house. I hope, I pray, I'm doing everything I can in my little way to serve not that outcome, but to serve us understanding and experiencing and embodying unity awareness on a collective level with all the transformational, you know, ways that that then can flow forward. So I really feel in 10 years' time, we'll have either gone through a traumatic, catastrophic breakdown, which I most certainly hope and trust we won't, or we'll be at that newly emergent next chapter in our journey. And, you know, I always remember going to school for the first time, and the school gates opening, and we go, wow, what adventures are coming. And, you know, as a walker between worlds, you know, I feel that's where we're at. There is so much, we haven't even begun. We haven't even begun. You know, we're like 3 years old, I know we're teenagers, but we're like little kids in this amazing universe, a multidimensional universe. There is so much, much, much more. It's like me at 3 years old, thinking I know what I know now. I clearly didn't. I don't even know I know now what I know now. But that's, I feel, where we are as a species. And so I think it's an amazing moment. So let's come together, let's hold hands, let's take that leap into love, let's show up at the school gates, let's take this next adventure as microcosmic co-creators of consciousness together, because I feel it will be the most beautiful, amazing, truly wonderful ride ahead of us, an adventure ahead of us.
Well, we certainly do, and that's a beautiful description you've given there. And then, in some ways, then, even though we are these kind of unruly teenagers, it could also be said maybe we need to rediscover the childhood purity of our cosmic understanding. And perhaps some of our social systems, our cultural norms, things like that need to elevate themselves a little bit, because I think we have this understanding when we're very, very young, and then society, ambition, expectations, socialization, all of this cultural conditioning little by little kind of gives us different expectations on life. But do you see society and its cultures evolving enough to give us a chance to live in an open schoolyard environment to keep learning?
My sense is that in part there will be evolution, iteration, but often what happens with emergence, biological emergence, evolutionary emergence, is there's a step function. When we look at the history of Gaia, 4.5, 5 billion years, what you get is a process of what's called punctuated equilibrium. So when the environment is relatively stable, as it's been actually for the last 12,000 years or so, there's very little new speciation, because the way that organisms and their environments are, they are co-creative evolutionary partners. They're absolutely intrinsically interconnected. So when the environment's stable, everybody sort of goes along and there's very little evolutionary processes. As Darwin found out when he went to the Galapagos, birds grow longer bills or shorter bills or whatever, but there's no major new species being birthed and emerging, because why would there be? There's no need to be when everything is relatively stable. In longer terms, like 40,000 years and hundreds of thousands of years, with ice ages and what's called Milankovitch cycles, which is the Earth's orbit around the Sun and all the rest of it, then there is more change. And what happens then is there is species, what's called speciation, new species, but again more gradual. As biological organisms can't sort of respond to the changes, there's a gentle die out, and then there's gentle pull in. But when you get something like 66 million years ago, with the asteroid hitting, and one of 5 major extinction events, when the worst was something like 95% of all biological life on Gaia was made extinct, then incredibly soon after that, the whole of life, the whole of Gaia goes into overdrive. And so 66 million years ago, the dinosaurs perished, but tiny little shrew-like creatures, mammals, then went into overdrive, and 66 million years later us. So it seems to me that life will find a way, consciousness will find a way, we can be part of that or not. And if we're not, life will still find a way, and consciousness will still find a way. But I hope we're around. I hope we're...
It would be nice if we lived to see it, right? And in many ways, I think we can say that humanity is now this driving force of evolution, that we are creating ourselves this environmental issue that may force the change, just by climate change, by overpopulation, by war machines, of pushing all of these human developments to their extremes. We've created now the environmental factors that will instigate this change. So it's kind of this race to the turning point, isn't it? Will it get so much worse before we wake up to do it, or will we wake up because we see these dark clouds accumulating on the horizon and respond to it? You're voting for the leap into love, and I'm with you on that. But I think that's...
There is that uncertainty, you're absolutely right. And that's why I don't have an answer, because I don't know how and if our collective psyche, there'll be sufficient... there's a tipping point. You know, and in such systems emerge and break down or break through, a tipping point comes. And often in a tipping point, there isn't that understanding of the tipping point. It's like Tom and Jerry, you know, Tom chasing Jerry off the cliff, and the cartoon, they're into mid-air, and then they look back and realise they're off the cliff. And so it's very difficult in complex systems to foresee the tipping point, except there's a number of ways you can, and I write about this in the book. There are clues, and we're in those clues now. We absolutely are in those clues now. And we are, as you say, we are the instigators of the 6th mass extinction event in the last 500 million years now because of us. So it is a question of when and will, and please, let's wake up, and the sooner the better.
It certainly is. Well, thank you for that beautiful vision. And just to end here today, so with the great work you're doing and inspiring many others to this wake-up call, let's assume we do wake up on time. You know, and you mentioned Irvin Laszlo, our dear friend here several times, and at the tribute we gave him this week, he came up with his new formula for understanding the universe, and his 13th point was that maybe we come around and all of this work we're doing is here for back to purpose of making a contribution, enhancing the original purpose. How do you feel about that?
I feel I completely resonate with that, and I love, because you may remember he woke up that morning with this 13th precept, which I felt was really crucial. And the ancient musical scale had 13 notes. So in the ancient music, when you reach the 13th, you begin the next octave. And I feel that that's what this is about. When we come together to realise this, that we are part, each and every one of us, unique notes in this emergent symphony, then we show up. And on this 13th note of both being and doing, and coming together with purpose and in service, that we can go forward, we can grow up, we can be part of this incredibly beautiful emergent world.
Well, thank you so much. What a beautiful thought and voice, the 13th note, the new octave, the symphony we're all creating together. Thank you for being such an inspiration to us all, for your service to humanity and everything you're doing. It's really such a joy and pleasure to experience this leap into love with you. Thank you for being with us today, Jude.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. Thanks to everybody. Bless you all.
Bless you. Thank you, and blessings. All over this day. Thank you.